hybrid.
469.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome everybody to what is the date for August 4th Dsca board meeting. And first of all, do a little technical test. Is everybody hearing okay?
Sounds
sir.
good.
I ask those remotely to mute if you're not speaking, please, to help with echo stuff and so forth. So again, welcome everybody. It looks like we're going to get stormy out there, so I'm glad we're getting started now. May I call this meeting to order and check on who we have in attendance board member-wise. And so look around the room, I think I'm seeing everybody. So Kathy Sellers, Bob Willow, Peter Fanning, Clark Lauren, and Roger Berry, and James Still. And in Sturbridge, Massachusetts, we have Alan Friedman.
And someplace we have here, there he is, Ken Sheelan.
And Ken Sheelan. So welcome everybody, and let's get started. Jamie, Secretary's report, approval of the minutes.
Did everybody get the minutes?
Yeah.
Any changes, edits, etc.?
No.
All right.
We have a motion to approve the minutes.
So I'll second either way.
Okay, and all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, there, passes unanimously. Clark, to you for the treasurer's report.
Okay, our current balance at Sable Palm Bank is $9,548.88.
Good. Any questions about that? No.
Where's the bank again? What is the name of the bank?
Sable Palm.
Oh, P-O-N or Pond?
Palm.
P-O-P-O-P-A-L.
As you go up Ringling, there's a building just before you get to 30.
Oh, yeah, I'll tell you what. Okay, good.
All right, and moving right along into new business, we are really pleased to have Nick Patel, Chief City Engineer, with us today, and with him is Dan Ornstein, City Engineer, both of them here, and we are so pleased about that because the importance of the engineering department to touching almost everything that goes on in the city. Nick has recently joined the city 4 or 5 months ago, so I think it's a great time to have him. He knows a bit about the issues and objectives and things like that, but not enough that he can't learn more. So with that said, he's going to have a PowerPoint presentation, and I welcome you, Nick. Why don't you come up here and sit right here or stand here as you wish, and I will be the tech running the PowerPoint for you.
Okay.
Here, you guys just pull up another chair too. And you can see the next thing.
Hang on. So, just 1 second. And then
So I guess we're on the camera.
On the left, yeah.
Okay. So we're not facing you all, but if you look at the screen, you can see us.
We can hear you though.
Oh, that's good. Okay. Excellent. Yeah.
have we gotten enabled?
Someone's visiting us from Mount Rushmore. Nice to see.
That's good.
I haven't been. Where is North by Northwest from here? I haven't been inside. This is a nice opportunity.
Well, I have it on my screen, so.
Very
Yeah, me too.
swanky. I love the molded share with Roger. It's very unique. So, it's well.
A little bit of it.
Yeah, it kind of looks like a block of
Something's coming.
but it's the way it's shaped, but yeah.
But, you know, it's interesting. It's used quite a bit.
Oh,
It's
nice.
kind of fun, you know, it's a piece of sculpture that's a usable sculpture, yes.
I've been called to break up a few bar fights, so.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, the view is beautiful as well.
Yes.
That is a whiteboard. Ever get that?
Well, I don't think we're gonna start hybrid meetings at Broadway anytime soon.
No.
Hey, we've been doing pretty well. We did okay last week, right?
Okay. You get no more.
I kind of
Oh.
like it, actually. There's so many benefits.
Yeah,
Yeah, I really like it. I mean.
you on
the
bay or the board? I'm on
There's a-
community outreach.
Absolutely, I know it was discussed for
I
years,
think there are about
benefits of
20 of us.
telecommuting and whether or not it could happen.
And fortuitously, they
With
just
traffic
sent
and all
that
that. Overnight,
update
it just happens.
going into the minutes
Yeah.
from the last meeting and start putting notes together for a presentation today. Now I don't know. They did it.
I had lunch with one else. First time I met him.
I like them a lot, you know. I like their whole team. They,
Really nice.
what they've done is phenomenal.
What's the building that's got the big,
That, and my daughter.
Yeah, just in the past few weeks, put in a big red crane in front of the Ritz Tower?
It's just really
Oh, wow.
kind of transformative.
Oh, and that's the, Basin.
Is that Besa there?
Yeah, that's Basin.
And then there's one
Further to the, north.
where O'Toole was supposed to be.
Before over.
Or just before.
Yeah.
Is there a problem with
Where
the,
they've got piles of dirt.
is there a problem with the slides?
Ooh, and they just, I don't think they ever approved. No, not before, the one before.
Is anybody listening?
Piles of.
Is there a problem?
Yes.
Ah.
It was a problem. That's tense.
You fixed it.
All the used cars have gone up and,
Yeah, so
it's
we
a
have,
Wow. There we go.
great time to sell your car.
It
Or
was,
if,
but
yeah.
it, unfortunately, that to be skipping, so everyone's like.
Yeah.
Next,
Next, I think we're,
Okay, oh, good, you guys are.
I think we're, kind of good to go here.
Okay, great, yeah.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me today, and I appreciate David for inviting me to this meeting, as well as the Downtown Sarasota Condo Association, so I appreciate that. And so just, next slide. So just a little introduction about myself. I graduated from the University of South Florida with my Master's of Science in Engineering Management, and I also received my bachelor's in civil engineering as well as bachelor's in mechanical engineering. After graduation, most of my career has been with Florida Department of Transportation, and I worked there for 17 years. And I worked in this district, so District 1 encompasses about 12 counties, and I did interact a lot with Sarasota County as well as the city of Sarasota. I don't know if you guys have driven through the Divergent Diamond on I-75 University. That's the project I oversaw, from, implementation and implemented the first Divergent Diamond in the state of Florida. So since after DOT, I heard about Alex retiring, and she had a really good reputation. So, I thought about it wanting to be closer to home. So I lived
I've moved down this area since 2017 in Sarasota County. And so I took this opportunity, and I appreciate Marlon, Pat, and Doug giving me this opportunity. So just a little bit about my certification. I am a registered professional engineer, certified public manager, real estate broker as well, certified contractor, and a graduate certificate in technology management. So, I've kind of had this opportunity to kind of learn all the aspects of the laws and rules in that aspect, and I'm glad to be part of the city. Next slide, please. So kind of talk about where the city engineer position resides. So as I was pursuing this position, they ended up merging two different positions, Alex's position, and I don't know if you know Mike Del Rossi. He was over capital projects as well as infrastructure maintenance. So they ended up merging two different positions to kind of oversee. So I report under Public Works, who Doug Jeffcoat is my Public Works Director. Underneath Doug, there's two positions for the Public Works General Manager, who's Todd, and he oversees solid waste as well as fleet. And then the city engineer position, which I oversee, that's the engineering department. And then we reorged it as well, and the engineering department is under Daniel. And then capital projects as well as the infrastructure maintenance. So that's how we're set up. And, those are some of the org changes that are happening in Public Works. Next slide. So we're going to quickly kind of cover some highlights into this. I'm going to focus on the first few slides, and then we'll kind of run through the other slides and then kind of leave it up for question and answer. Next slide, please. All right, so before that, please. Slide before. Yep. Okay, so I wanted to bring your attention to Click to Fix. Under the Apple app, you should be able to download. You should type in COS Click to Fix. It's also on Google Play as well, and if you cannot get access to it, it is on our city website. And the reason I'm bringing this to your attention, we ended up getting this live recently, and anything as you're walking around the city, you see some issues with lights or potholes or any issues around the city that you see, you could technically take a picture, make sure you put in the right location, and you can either submit your name and contact, and they'll update you when to fix it. And if you want to leave no name and contact, it's still submitted to us. And so you can do it either way. And it's a very good, quick app that you can submit something and assure you it will get to the right department and we'll address those concerns. So just want to bring your attention to something that was released recently. So that's the Click to Fix app. Next slide, please. All right, so something else that we've recently implemented between me and Daniel, we've been working on this project, and there's a lot of construction going on around the city. So we coordinated with the DOT as well as Sarasota County, and they're submitting all the information to us, anything that's happening within the city, and we're regularly updating the website. So the way to get access is under city's website, under the GIS map. You scroll all the way down, there's a GIS map circle, you click on that, and then under closures and detours, so you can go to the specific area that you're concerned about, and you can scroll you can click on it, scroll all the way down, click on the link, and it'll give you the MOT plans as well. So it will give you the specifics going on. So if you're going through the Gulfstream roundabout and wondering, how's the traffic going to flow? How does it look like right now? You can go to this website, scroll all the way down, click on it, and it'll tell you what kind of configuration we have out there. So just to let you know, we're updating this information regularly, weekly, and it should give you what's happening a week out, 2 week out. This includes all special events, anything that the county and the city and the state is doing closures and detours, and it's a really valuable tool out there. And some of them will not have maps just because it's a simple closure or something, but it will just still notify you of any closures or detours that are happening within the city. Next slide, please. So I'm going to talk about the engineering design construction manual, and it is in our ordinance and it is part of the code. This is just a booklet that if you're working anywhere within the city rights of way, this is what developers, folks of the city, all those folks will have to follow this document. And last time it was updated was 2002. So it needs a full rewrite and additional chapters in there. So until I got on board, I know Daniel and Alex worked a lot on it. So they've done the first draft, and we're looking at this information because right now there's a lot of changes going on with the zoning code, as well as the comprehensive plan. And recently, 2018 Florida Green Book, which dictates any public streets or access or that's traveling through streets, whether it's city, county, state, it has the minimum requirements in there. And some new chapters have been added, such as traffic calming and that aspect. So as we're working on updating this document, and also stormwater has changed quite a bit since 2002. There's a lot of focus on water quality, a lot of focus on some of those aspects of it, stormwater treatment. So we're working on doing a whole rewrite on this aspect, and so more to come on that. And Daniel will kind of walk you through what it will take to get the EDCM updated in the ordinance. So just kind of
Oh, certainly.
well, timeline, we still don't have, just to be clear on that, we don't have like a estimated timeline on when we're going to get, because it is a thorough process that we have to go through. But Daniel's going to more talk about the process on how to get it into the ordinance.
Oh, right. So the EDCM needs a thorough rewrite. The last time it was done was 2002, and you can imagine where technology was in 2002 compared to today. And AutoCAD modeling programs are all the more advanced. So especially when it comes to stormwater. So and so it does need a thorough full rewrite. We're adding a chapter for landscape systems. So in that regard, the EDCM is adopted by ordinance. So, and it's part of the code itself. So what it will take is public hearings, probably multiple public hearings before we move it through adoption. I think it goes to the planning, it has to go to the planning board actually, before it gets to the city commission, and then then we go from there. So these will all be publicly noticed hearings. So right now we're in the middle of we're sending back the landscape chapter for another round of internal review because it really bears that much focus. It kind of really ups the requirement. We want to make sure that on behalf of developers, we want to make sure that it is feasible and it's feasible as well as it works in the long-term scenario. So that's kind of where we're at the moment, and I think we're gonna. So in other words, we're gonna enlarge the scope of the rewrite, so it will take more time. Yeah.
And just to kind of add to that, something for us to consider is like, there's a lot of focus on Florida native trees. We're looking at that aspect. We're also looking at what kind of trees. I understand the canopy trees, shade trees, and all that is important, but we're also looking at what kind of trees at what location, because if we have, for example, brick pavers in downtown and we have certain type of trees that produce fruit or something like that, will stain the brick pavers and that aspect. So we're not just looking at it from a design construction aspect, we're also looking at long term. And also there are trees out there that require low maintenance, meaning once they get established, they don't require too much maintenance aspect of it. So it won't be applicable at all locations. So we're looking at location by location where it makes sense. So we're looking at all those aspects before we actually put it into the EDCM. So I just hope you all patient in doing this. I just don't want to put something into our ordinance that we have to again rewrite. This is important that we do this right thoroughly. It goes to the appropriate public process. And just to kind of bring to note is that there's also updates to the zoning that are happening at this time, the comprehensive plan. So last thing we want to do is put a EDCM out there, then the zoning as well as the comprehensive plan and all that gets changed again. So, you know, we just want to make sure that we do a thorough job in updating the EDCM, and that's where we are in the process at this time.
Yeah. When one of our committees first discussed the landscape chapter with Mr. Orenstein, and in the appendix there, it has the list of primary, secondary, tertiary trees by street block throughout especially the downtown area. And we had discussed Dsca through our committees and through our different neighborhood groups, reviewing that to provide residential feedback. I understand you get engineering feedback as to where the pipes are, et cetera. But that needs to be done prior to public hearing process. Because once it gets to the public hearing process, that kinds of revision changes I don't see occurring. And since it's still marked as provisional, is that something that the city would be willing to do, working with the DSCA to get that kind of street by street review, to at least get comments from the directly affected citizens who live or walk on those streets?
Right, I think, if I can answer,
Yeah, go ahead.
Part 5 has all the tree tables in the back. The tree tables describe, trees on every block in downtown, whether they're for downtown core, bayfront, and edge. So for adopting the ECM, that is a very involved process. We do want to do the proper neighborhood outreach before that is the tables are fully adopted. So that's why on top of the tables, it says provisional, not for adoption in the latest draft, because we recognize that we can't just tell people what trees should be on their street and they're obligated to plant. We need to get the outreach and get the buy-in from the public and make sure people are well notified. So that will be, I think, how this is going to be phased is that we have the overall EDCM adoption that has the new construction standards, and then that will adopt part 5, but the tables won't be adopted until we come back for another round of public input and have that done, because that is a very involved process. We can't just adopt that. It would take too long to do that first.
I mean, just to kind of elaborate is that, look, we're going to go through this thoroughly. I mean, the issue is that there's also other means with challenges associated. Like, for example, if you walk on a certain part of Main Street, we have certain trees that are planted in there, and you can see some of the sidewalk or the bricks that are coming up because of the root system. So you have to I understand landscaping is important, and we certainly want to do it, but again, we want to make sure that the locations and the type of trees and obviously shade structure and all that is taken into consideration, because you got to understand that, when we put this kind of stuff out there and the city's got to maintain it, there is long-term maintenance related costs associated with it. So again, we want to balance those factors, and we also understand what kind of look or vision we have for certain areas like Main Street, Coconut, and all those areas. There's certain type of vision that the city and the residents have, and we want to incorporate those as well as some of the long-term effects, so that we do have a diverse system and balanced system that's out there. Just want to bring that to everybody's attention.
I'm sorry, Judge, I didn't want to interrupt, so sorry, but I was just wondering if sound abatement is one of the factors that you're considering when you're looking at the trees, because some are better at that than others.
I think that would be effective. And
Excuse me, could you repeat the question so that people can hear this?
Yeah, I think you all need to speak up.
Yes, I was wondering if sound abatement is one of the factors that's being considered as the city is reviewing the landscape plan, because some trees are much more effective at sound abatement than others.
right, I think, certain trees are more effective in reducing sound. I think that sound abatement itself is more a zoning code matter for those purposes, but it's certainly the preference is for canopy trees, and that's per the downtown green space policy.
I'm sorry, the preferences for
Canopy trees.
canopy trees.
Yes. because that's what the EDCM Part 5 functions as, is the street tree plan that is called for in the downtown green space policies. So,
Thank you.
okay, I guess we can go to the next slide. Yeah.
We'll quickly go through the other slides.
All right, so then I'll just walk, since I'm on the DRC, I'll walk you through the most recent developments. Dan Ornstein, Assistant City Engineer. So this is the map from the Downtown Quarterly Development Report. It's a really great report that Susan Dodd with planning puts out every quarter. It notes every development in the city, what stage it's at. So if you have a question on development, check out this report. It's really, really fantastic.
And Dan, they did see Nick's whole thing, so I think we're pretty.
Yeah, I'm gonna blast through this. So, the recently completed Quay Block 6 and the waterfront. Latest I've heard is the Quay might do a little more than what's out there, but right now it's paved and landscaped and everything. So that's the latest there. Next slide, please. Under construction right now, it's in Rosemary, but lost on Lemon and 9th. The Demarque is under construction, so we're interested in how they're accomplishing that. Citrus Phase 3 they're almost done. It's not completely done yet. And the Beso, which is Quay Blocks 4 and 5, that's under construction, and that just started. Yeah. Next slide, please. In the future, what's been through the DR process a bit is we have the car wash going in at Fruitville and Lime. Then next to that on the right is Ringling Plaza South. So that's right by the roundabout between the existing building and the McCullough Pavilion. They'll share the parking garage, which is an interesting feature between buildings. So then Artist Court on the one on the lower left, that one is at Adams Lane by across from Tolls Court. So redevelopment there. And lastly, and probably the largest one would be Beat Paws at 1991 Main Street. That's still under DRC review. So that's replacing where the old mall was. So relatively new in DRC at the moment. On the upper left is 1703 Main Street. That's where Il Panificio is, or Panificio. I don't speak Italian, but yeah, that's where that is. So that's a hotel, condo, restaurant plan there, kind of sharing the Sarasota Herald site a bit. So that'll be interesting. Hasn't been to its first DRC yet, so but yeah. 307 South Orange, that was a DRC today. So assisted living facility where the Michael Saunders building is, and the public parking. On the lower left, that is the long side of the main view of Sarasota. Kind of an early rendering. That is a hotel with ground floor, probably restaurant. And then on the right is Swell Restaurant at 10th and Florida Ave. So something that I think it's a vacant parcel now. So yeah, a restaurant. So
where did you say the Mainview Hotel? Where is that at?
Oh yeah, Mainview Hotel is at Main and Wallace. So that's actually east of 301.
Okay.
I haven't seen a lot over there, especially tall buildings. So that'll be interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. And then the Bay, I spoke with Bill Waddell, and just to give an overall picture, Fountain Garden restoration is complete. That's in the lower right. Lawn Bowling Green was restored. The Mangrove Walk is about 95% complete. The Bay Park, phase 1 should be complete summer next year. And Boardwalk, they're pulling together all their permits to make that happen. So that is upcoming. Moving on to more public projects, Legacy Trail extension. This is pretty fresh. That's and I stole this from friends of Legacy Trail, but I'm sure they don't mind. There's the newly opened segment that's shown there. And the part connecting the whole thing should be complete by January of next year. Yeah.
Cool.
Ringling Trail, that's putting protected bicycle lanes out on Ringling Boulevard. We just got the second bid back, so we're reviewing that. So But we'll be moving forward with construction. We plan on moving forward with construction with that before the end of the year. Next slide, please.
All right, so
Yeah.
this one is the open air trolley, we submitted an RFP recently, out for proposal to get, interested bidders for this, so we're working on that, and that's coming, hopefully by the end of this year. Next slide.
That's a freebie?
Not sure yet.
Oh,
But DOT is funding some of that, and the city's putting in some of the money and did a bid, hopefully China some money as well. Next one is a micromobility. We're reviewing, we're in the RFP process right now. We've got some bidders out there, and we're looking at different options for the micromobility aspect. Next slide, please.
and I think we know about this one, if
Okay.
that helps.
Yeah, so Boulevard Arts, as you know about this. Next slide, please. Osprey Avenue, that's gonna be completed end of 2021. Next slide, please. Just want to keep you posted on this, is that the traffic will start changing in mid-August timeframe. And just to let you know, you will not be able to go through that construction from north to south, south to north on US 41. I mean, you only have an option to go through to the Berry Islands and that aspect of it. So be ready, it'll be coming in August. Next slide.
Notice they're closing some sections tonight, tomorrow night.
Yeah, what they're closing is they're closing the Hawk signal. And then that information that was submitted this evening was more of a pedestrian detour route at this point. And that will be implemented once the project is completed, the Hawk signal. Next slide. Future projects that we are looking at, it's not in the works, right? Meaning they're working on the planning process, US 41 roundabout at Ringling Boulevard at Main Street. And then they're also State Road 780 Fruitville Vision Corridor Plan, which is outside the city limits. They're working on the planning side of it at this point. Next slide. And that's all we have for today. And I want to thank Dan for coming to this meeting with me, and I appreciate
Thank you.
his help.
Absolutely.
One overarching comment about the right of way in EDCM is the conflict often between where utilities are, sewer lines, gas lines, and whatever. And I've had some personal experience advocating for some right of way improvements. This is where I think there's a real opportunity, for public works, the various departments to all be in the boat, shall we say, on this commitment to more green space and prettier right of ways. Do you have a sense that the team in Marlon's direction is to, in some cases, it's going to be necessary to relocate water lines or gas lines, and it's going to cost some money. If people wrap their mind around that as part of the commitment to a greener downtown.
It's a bigger balance. I mean, certainly they understand the vision and what they want to do. The challenge is that, we have so much limited right of way. And, it's like, when you start looking at these areas, it's kind of like spaghetti underground, So the challenge is, where do you put all this infrastructure underneath the ground? You have utilities, you got cable, you got franchisees, you got electrical lines and all that. So the question is, if you're going to implement this vision, it's going to come at a very big, expensive cost. So there is a balance in all this, and agreed at certain locations, it is worth the cost of relocating and doing it, but I don't think it's cost feasible to look at the entire city and kind of implement those measures all across the board. It's just uncost feasible. We won't have enough money to do all these projects. So it's just looking at it from which areas are very critical, to the city, and where can we relocate and when can we balance. It's just a balancing act. And, that's why part of the landscape chapter and all that, we are getting other people like Utilities Department of Public Works feedback on it. but it's hard to balance that out and look at it from that standpoint.
Yeah, one of the things we ran into is, the use of root containment systems. And yes, those are some more money, but again, looking at the tree as an investment. So.
If I can add, so for that question, that's why, if you look at the mechanics of the chapter, and you have to really kind of delve into it, that there's primary, secondary, tertiary trees, and it's supposed to adapt to its location. I think that we can't, untangle the web of utilities with every project. That's not cost feasible exactly, but yeah, there's some adaptability with the size of the tree, and that's prescribed for, so that we know what the fallback is at a given spot. And then it would be nice to add a detail regarding where utilities should be allocated in the right of way as a standard to kind of aspire to over. And this is like a multi-decade process of getting that all in the right spot. Yeah.
And you also got to be careful about planting trees right next to a water sewer line. The other thing is those roots can get into those systems, and you got to make sure you have a good balance. And the last thing you want to do is have the root system start getting into the water and sewer lines in that aspect. So, you have to consider those aspects as you're developing a corridor in that aspect. So, agreed. It's just looking at it, at which areas that you can implement the strategy.
So it's not always looking above obviously above ground. There's a lot that goes on below the ground. We can't always have what we want because it affects what's going on underneath the ground as well. I got a question for you on your Click to Fix. Do you have any data on that app yet? How is that coming along? I know it was just rolled out. I've got it. I've tried using it a couple times. There are some glitches, and I don't know what the response. There's no feedback. Has it been received? How are you? And that is a question for everyone who's has been promoting the Click to Fix app and what it's capable of doing. So, do you have any data on that?
All right. So, the way, if you put in your contact and email address, it will give you a status update when it's closed or not.
Yeah.
Whenever you put in your email address and now if you don't put in that, you won't know what happened with it. But if you put in your email address, you can check the status where it's at, and then when it's closed out, you will send you an email saying that this issue's closed out. Then you can click on it and see the notes on it. We do have some internal measurements that are coming in there, and roughly a week, I would say, like Public Works, just Public Works, it is getting roughly about 30 to 50, requests in there, and we are striving to get them closed out where reasonable, but some of them may take some time, because it's not like something that we can quickly fix. It could be like a signal timing adjustment. We have to go to DOT to kind of implement those measures, and it could be out of our control.
Okay. I'm sure over time you're going to collect more substantial data. Okay, good, thanks.
And I will say, critical to everybody, please make sure, for our folks and timeliness, try to put in the right location where this issue is at, because sometimes folks are spending a little bit more time trying to find the issue. They just won't close it out, just close it out. They'll try to look, hey, maybe down the line, is this where the issue's at or not? So it's really critical that you focus on where this location of this issue is at.
Another question on that Click to Fix. I think it's great. Once it's up and running and it works, it's going to be wonderful for a lot of different entities within the city. How is this being promoted? And I mean, we are all here, we're from different condos, and I push it through our condo, but I haven't seen anything. How are we as a city, how are you promoting that? And
well, I think about a month ago, our public information office did send out a blast to social media in that aspect. It is on the city's website. It's fairly new, so and part of here we are promoting this.
No, that's true, and so that would be my thing, is to try to promote that within.
And we're going to also promote it to CCNA and all that aspect. So we are grassrooting it as well, meaning we're going to different presentations, and I know Marlon, Pat, those guys are also presenting, so we're on the early stages and it's just been rolled out about a month ago.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Nick, thank you very much. We appreciate you and Dan presenting in the interest of time.
Can I ask a question, Dave?
Okay.
And thank you all for inviting me. I appreciate it. And if I can help in any way, please feel free to reach out.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So much for Q&A.
Q&A.
Yeah, so much for Q&A.
Yeah, so much for Q&A, I agree.
Rebelling in the field.
Okay, moving along, under one new business item, we have a new Gold Associate member for consideration of approval. And do we have a representative from Serpro, North Sarasota?
Yes, hi.
Hi there.
Hey.
Welcome, sir.
Well, thank you, David. I appreciate the invite. As many people probably already know, Serpro is a fire water restoration company. We specialize in one-stop shopping. So if your upstairs neighbor leaves the bathtub running on accident and it comes through with your unit, we can be there. We can start the mitigation, the emergency service. And then if there's any kind of demolition needed, we full service all the way through. We're going to put the repair. Basically, our slogan is like it never even happened. We have about 2,000 franchises nationwide. So our local franchise here, I operate and maintain that. So I appreciate the invite.
Okay, and thank you. And protocol in this, Patrick, is to.
Yes, I'll make a motion that the board accept the application for Gold Associate sponsor member to Serpro North Sarasota.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Adopted unanimously. Welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
The next item under old business, status of the annual condo survey. Bob, do you have an update for us?
The most information I have is that the survey's been sent out. We've sent some follow-up emails for Patrick with his computer wizardry can tell us, who opened and who forwarded the surveys. So we followed up with, I'm doing it along with Sheila. And I sent one, including Ted Wilson. I think he was one of the ones we did a follow-up on, and we're waiting to hear back on.
What else, Ted? Anything to add to that?
Just sending it out, of course, as we said, this because of some of the confidential natures for members only, for the condo members only, and it's really being sent to the property managers and the condo boards who have the fiduciary responsibility and can do the comparison. And so if there's anybody who's on a condo board has not been distributed to them, please contact your member rep or your property manager because the survey report was distributed to all of the property managers and member reps that we have on file.
One matter that has come up is the Longboat Key has a federation of condos, and they have about 75 members, and they've been doing a survey for a number of years now. The president of that federation has shared their survey results with me. I have not shared it beyond that without asking for his permission, but it begs the question of if we would like to see their survey results for similarities, differences, questions, input. It begs the question, would we feel comfortable sharing our survey with their board? And it is my feeling, this gets a little dicey, but it seems to me the benefits of doing that and seeing their results and they seeing ours, the benefits outweigh the downsides. And I was looking for feelings on that, if there was any sensitivity about sharing it with somebody outside of our members.
I think getting a survey from an organization that has 70 units in it would be beneficial for us when we go to do our revision and do another future survey probably next year. So I think it's a good idea.
Is there anybody who has a concern about it?
Yeah,
this-
let me, David, just it's a thought, that's all. It's not sure it's a concern. We've talked several times about the confidentiality of our survey. And if we share it with a board that has 70 condo members, I think we can kiss confidentiality goodbye. Now, they've shared it with us, so it's very difficult to not reciprocate. But I think we ought to be at least aware that there will be no confidentiality once it's shared with them. I mean, they can share it with anybody they feel like at that point, even if we beg them on our knees not to, they can, or any one of their members can. So we just ought to be aware that we're giving up confidentiality for that exchange of information. Might or might not be in our interest, I don't know, but that's the fact.
So that's a no.
Well, I suppose it is if we feel strongly about confidentiality. I'm a little, it's a little awkward to give it to everybody on Longboat Key before we allow people in downtown Sarasota to see
I
it.
think the thought was to give it to their board and ask them to keep it confidential, but it wouldn't be now. Of course, we're going to Scout's honor, but again, other discussion?
How did they, do you know how they ran their survey?
I believe they
Did
used
they
Sheila.
limit the results to only the condos that submitted?
I believe they shared it.
With everybody?
Yeah. Yes.
Alan, just to follow up, this is Peter, if you
Hi,
can't see me. You've expressed this concern before, and I appreciate it. But are there, in your mind, are there levels of confidentiality? In other words, would you object, as I've asked before, or do you think that the persons who answered the survey would object to sharing congregate data, or any data that's not personally identifiable to a particular association or individual?
Yeah, I think we did discuss that before, and I think it's probably a sensible thing. I mean, we can agree to share with them the information on an aggregated basis without giving the details of each and every condo who responded. So I would have no problem with that.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you somewhat. I don't think I would want everybody, all the associations in Longboat, to know everything that I had put down about my individual condominium, like budgets and security plans or whatever it was. Bob, you know this better than me, but would you agree that we could share something that didn't go that far?
Yes.
Okay.
I think what we have to recognize is that this is competitive data. You know, we're in competition with other condos. It's fine to keep it in the family, but I certainly would agree with what Peter just described, which is to aggregate the data and share it.
See what kind of sanitized, shall we say, document we can come up and just defer this till next month and just not take any action at the moment.
So primarily, what would be is annual budgets. I don't know, number of employees. It depends. It's like anything. It depends. Some condos obviously are. There's only a few in a building, and then there are larger complexes with over 200s. But for me, I think it's useful, and a lot of this information can be had just by going online. Realistically, for even some of the real estate selling sites will list things like the maintenance cost per square foot, and obviously you get an idea of what you can go on the county site to see what units sold for and what the sales history of the units have been. So there's an awful lot of public information on this stuff out there.
And Bob, I'm happy to work with you and Patrick on what condensed.
If I might add, what I first understood, the reason for any sharing between the two major associations was more for the syntax of structured questions, not at all comparing the data. And so from that aspect, I would be in favor of sharing the entire report with the president there and maybe with whoever's chairing their questioning committee process, same right here. So David and Bob, could see theirs and take away from that, what would we learn to maybe change how we ask questions? Are they using a certain terminology that we might consider? Not caring at all about, I don't think any of our board members need to know what any individual condo on Longboat Key filled out their survey on. At least that's my only perspective. I think there's value to someone looking at the structure of their questioning and learning, just as we're going to get feedback from, we've already gotten feedback of some modifying some questions or a little more detail.
All right, well, let's, Bob, Patrick, and we'll kick the can down the road on this and come back next month or something. City updates, Kathy, do you have?
I got a couple of them. I did not attend the last two commission meetings last night and the day before. A lot of it had to do with zoning and I think just approvals, if I'm correct on that. I did listen in on the DID, and we can talk more about that later under going forward and some other things that we want to discuss. But bottom line is they are, there is concern, we're getting back to the whole vagrancy, that's a separate topic, but they're looking to reinstitute the Friday night live first Friday or whatever it is. But they do have someone who's coming in, a professional, who's going to look at marketing, and there are competing, they're looking at other options, but it could really impact us here in the downtown. And they're looking for support. I'm not saying any monetary, but just getting the word out and promoting what they want to do. And sounds like they've got a wonderful way to promote the businesses and make the downtown a more lively, vibrant place. And they're going about it the right way. So that's really basically all I have on the city update.
This is the first Friday Palm Walk. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, but it's not going to be Palm Walk. I mean, they're going to get away from that. They're going to reinvent it. And
City Walk, something.
Yes, and they've got 3 different types of proposals on the table, and one of them, it just sounds amazing. They really do. And it's a guy that they're working with is right down here across from the Mark. So they're trying to stay local. He's also done what he's done to promote the St. Armand Circle. And he's looking to come up with a different brand to try to rebrand the downtown and promote it that way.
On here is also a city budget update. Not much. need to report.
David, can I add to Kathy's report?
Yes.
Monday night city commission largely dealt with the request of Vicki Oldham and her board to lease the site where the Leonard Reed House is going to be in Newtown at MLK and Orange Avenue. It was stunning, the length of time they spent on the discussion, because it was largely the entire meeting, and the breadth of the support and the depth of the support for the project, the Sarasota African American Cultural Coalition. It was stunning, the level of support for it. And I'm glad to say that our board unanimously supported, although they didn't know that. I did speak, but I spoke as an individual in support of the project. And the city commission directed the Vicki and her group and the city staff to get together and to work out some an agreement that would include mixed use in the project, some residential and commercial mixed use. So that's what they're doing. Vicki has agreed to do that, and the staff has agreed to do that. So it looks like that project is moving forward, and I think it's going to be a very important economic boost for Newtown, the first in 30 years I've been here.
Newtown has really been coming out at the commission meetings, and I'm glad to see it.
And then on the FY22 budget, there's really not much to report from the last meeting. It is moving ahead. It won't be before the commission until I think September 8th, But at this point, normally I think the cake is pretty well baked. And we do have design work on Boulevard of the Arts and 10th is underway. And some money is in there in FY23. So from a standpoint, and the Main Street effort is rather complicated, but they are certainly looking at that and putting money into some conceptual work, as controversial as it may be. I think that's moving on to committee reports, associates and events committee. Jamie?
Yeah. So we are going to hold our in-person event on October 13th, 2021. We have made a slight pivot in what we're going to be discussing at this event. In light of the Surfside condo tragedy, we are now going to change our topic to the serious side of building maintenance workshop. Kristen spent a lot of time and effort researching several venues, and everybody wants to hold events now, and things are very expensive and very cost prohibitive. So the best deal that we could find to accommodate what we're trying to do is at Art Ovation. So that will be the location. And then another update I had is we did have an associate members meeting on July 16th at Cenovus. We kind of discussed how everything was going in 2021 and what we're going to do for the associate members moving forward in 2022. And we did agree on 2 live events. For the biggest change was we actually agreed on 2 live events pending everything's okay for 2022 with no webinars, I believe is kind of the big takeaway on that.
And then the other thing that was casually, I guess, discussed at this point is a lawn bowling event. The concept here, it was a couple years ago when we did it, it was good fun. It's outdoors, it is kind of team oriented. And Ted looked into the possibility, and I put it on the table, of an event in November sometime. And I was wondering the reaction to everybody to have a little bit of fun. And Ted?
I did get your call, Ted. I'm going to call you back.
Well, I needed to talk to you before this meeting. The club is not really in a very good position for what we're doing right now as far as promotion of doing the condo challenge like we had last year. We would like to have it now on February 1st of 2022, if possible. That's a Tuesday evening. And that could change a couple of days if it would be beneficial to you all. Secondly, we're having one of the reasons that we kind of nixed the November deal is because on the 27th of October, we're having a Bowling with the Beatles operation, which is going to be open to all condominiums residents in downtown Sarasota. And if there's some people in the Platinum group that'd like to do some sponsorship there, we sure would love to have them. But right now, it's going to be on Sunday afternoon, October 27th. So it's something that could be fun. Just come down and learn a little bit about lawn bowling, the history of the club, and so forth. And we'd love to have all the people if possible. And then in November, we're also having a back to for our members up north that are coming back. We're having a special day for them. And so we just felt November got to be too busy to have the condo challenge and do it properly. And that's why we'd like to have you consider as a board to put the condo challenge on the books for February 1st.
Well, first of all, how does everybody feel about the concept of doing that again? Are we all something?
I think it was fun.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
And Broadway won. So
Yeah, Bob won, so you should like it.
I'm happy to go back. The trophy? We have it. It's in our law.
Has
Sounds
that
like fun.
Has that appeal been ruled on yet?
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's proceed on fleshing that out and penciling in February 1st.
Jamie, give me a call when you have the time in the next few days.
Okay, moving on, Green Space Committee, Patrick?
Yeah, so the Green Space Committee has not met recently, although we will be scheduling a meeting here in the next few weeks. And there's 3 things for the committee to be able to review. One that's coming up before the City Commission in September is the recommendations from the Tree Advisory Committee that met for over 2 years, a couple of years ago, and the recommendations have been on the table. It's coming back in front of the commission. And so we want to get people aware of what those recommendations were. Also related to that is any updates and discuss any updates on the EDSAM as we just heard from Dan Ornstein here. And thirdly is the Gulfstream Roundabout landscaping plan that currently calls for, guess what? Canopy trees in the medians and palm trees along the sidewalks, which is not what we want. So we need to get together and figure out how we're going to feed back to FDOT and the city. Since what I'd like to be able to do is have the FDOT landscape person available, at least through Zoom, and then schedule a meeting around that. So that's update plans coming up.
Could I add some of that?
Did you have a question?
Yeah, I had not a question. I want to comment. I don't know if you realize, but last city commission meeting, there was in the consent agenda, there was a consent to allow a franchise to be granted to Tampa Gas Company or Tampa Electric, which also has a gas, and they're going to franchise. I've asked about what are they going to do about the trees going in the right of way that could be disturbed by those new gas lines. And I really got kind of one of those answers. Well, it's covered under the building permits now. And I'm not sure which building permits they're going to have. I mean, building codes they're going to go by, whether it's the old ones that have relatively little to do with the trees or more with what we're trying to get done. So I think that gas franchise that's going to go through town is going to disturb a lot of trees. That's something to think about.
Okay. Next is the homeless committee. Peter, any?
Yeah, I'd just like to, I think some people know and are concerned about the position the Salvation Army has taken with regard to the homeless. We at the Downtown Sarasota Alliance Board this morning had a presentation by Lieutenant Colonel Michelle Matthews, the area commander of Salvation Army in Sarasota. And in her report this morning, that she reported that due to the rapid rise of COVID-19 and the Delta variant, infections in the Salvation Army facility had risen dramatically over the short period of time in the last week or two. And she announced that the Salvation Army would remain open for existing registered clients and would not be accepting new clients. So the Salvation Army is working with Sarasota Memorial Hospital to reestablish its protocols, which they stopped using, for persons without homes in need of medical services and testing, possibly testing. She also stated the Resurrection House will not be open for direct client services until further notice, but clients may still get their mail from 9 to noon at the Resurrection House. That's somewhat disturbing, especially given that we were on the verge very quickly of having mass evictions to renters. But I do know that on the evening of August 3rd, 2 days ago, in trying to assure that the number of homeless persons doesn't increase inadvertently because of the failure of some government policy, CDC Director Dr. Walensky signed an order on Monday temporarily halting evictions in counties with heightened levels of community transmission in order to respond to the recent developments of the trajectory of COVID-19. She also said that that they would increase services as they needed from CDC, and that the moratorium, in her opinion, is the right thing to continue through to October 3rd, I believe, to keep the people in their homes and out of congregate settings like the Salvation Army and others. So that's the good news and the bad news of what's happening that affects the homeless at this point in time. I can send the link to CDC.
Are they doing anything about vaccinations for homeless?
Yes, actually, the Salvation Army is proposing to do 2 more type pop-up clinics in the very near future, maybe as near as this weekend, to try to get out to vaccinate more of the persons who are without homes on the streets. Yeah.
Well, the closure of
Resurrection House with its showers, its meals, its daycare, means that we're going to have more people on the streets because there's nowhere else to go.
Yeah, and the other organization, Suncoast Partnership to End Homeless, I spoke just briefly. They didn't have a lot of time. They're running around, as you can imagine, too, trying to figure out how to fill in for those services. So there may be something coming up, but absolutely not tomorrow.
Was Kevin Stiff, did he attend?
Yes, Kevin Stiff has been involved with this along with the.
Right, but did he attend that meeting today with the Salvation Army?
He attended, I think he attended the meeting yesterday that the
Okay.
Salvation Army had. This meeting today was the Downtown Sarasota Alliance, in which Lieutenant Colonel Matthews appeared to give us an update on this information. And David, I don't know if you have any other information. I saw an email from you as well.
As far as just that, I talked to Pat Robinson last night about it and told him of the concern, not only the substance of it, but the emotion of it.
Right.
And he said that Kevin Phil's is the coordinator from the city standpoint, and he committed to get Kevin in touch with Debbie Trice, president of the RDA, the most affected. And so I don't know if that happened today, but Pat got his attention. Marlon's aware of the issue also.
I don't know if this is going to impact at all, but they have the sit and lie ordinance that is being looked at. And so that is something that was talked about, I think last month. And so I'm kind of been trying to address that one and seeing where they're at in the process with that with Fournier, but yeah, that doesn't help.
Okay, well, this leads into discussion about the COVID numbers. And I think, Patrick, you shared the charts for those of you who had the chance to look at it. The numbers are that awful. The increase from 2 months ago, as of last Wednesday, was like 600% increase in the city zips. The new numbers should be out today, but they didn't arrive. I haven't seen them yet, so I don't know what the data will look like when this week's they're issuing the reports weekly. This matter was discussed at the city commission meeting last night, but there's other than encouraging people to get vaccinated and encouraging people to be cautious, there was no specifics, some of which is caused by directives at the state level. So
did they agree to further? I didn't attend last night, so I watched the video. Did they kick that down to the next meeting too, again to Monday of the next meeting? They're going to, the items that Commissioner Hearn Koch put on the agenda?
Well, on Monday night, they didn't discuss it,
right.
But they did discuss it at the end.
Okay, so they're not going to do it as far as you know, 2 weeks from now. Yes.
No, they did discuss it last evening, and they agreed based on when more data comes in, what's warranted to discuss. But there was a lot of not much we can do other than vaccination, and people being cautious. But I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. Transportation, Roger.
Well, it's nice to have the experts on transportation because they take care of the major portion of my report, and I don't have to follow up on that. I do have a couple of things to mention. The did put $50,000 into the trolley. The city wanted 150, but
nice try.
So much for that. And incidentally, this did put 100,000 to the Sarasota Arts Alliance, the county, to create an annual arts festival for the arts in Sarasota. So, and this is a 5-year plan to put together a annual arts festival, and there's a the money to hire someone to work with the Arts Alliance to do this. So that's going to be an interesting.
This is somehow much bigger than all the art festivals that we already have.
Yes, this is a reaction, I think, of being editorializing to the possible loss of the orchestra, and that in order to emphasize that this is an arts community, that we need to do more than we have. And so the intent here was to involve all the local arts organizations in this process. Anyway, so we did put the 100 grand into doing this. A comment, I guess, would be if the orchestra does move and it builds a facility for that has been designed for the local arts organizations in Sarasota. This will be a kind of a critical issue for this community. They have identified, if you listen to the executive director, said that 10 local organizations who have practice and performance needs in Sarasota, and that they would like to take care of that. So I'm all for transportation. Let me do one transportation thing, and that is the diagonal parking on Main Street has been identified by the Sarasota Manatee County Metropolitan Planning Organization. That Main Street is has one of the highest accident street rates in the state. That the parking, the diagonal parking is a serious problem for the entire length of Main Street.
People backing into other people.
Yes, lots of fender benders, not many deaths. In fact, the only death was at a roundabout.
Not the famous motorcycle.
At 2 o'clock in the morning. Don't warn you, my car's going out. Enough.
Okay.
So wait a minute, what does that mean? So someone's looking more
Oh, yeah.
into diagonal parking?
Yes, the issue of getting rid of diagonal parking, which is popular with merchants, but unpopular in terms of safety.
The
Popular with a segment of merchants.
A segment of merchants, that's
yes,
right.
because there are merchants we absolutely do not want the parallel parking.
Yeah, and you know, it just ruins Lower Main because there's nobody there.
That's gotten so popular, nobody comes anymore.
Yeah.
And anything on the roundabout, I think got covered. It's just going to be a mess. I mean,
Well, it is one of the amazing planning efforts to deal with this major intersection that I've ever seen. They got a series of phases. I think they're well planned. I think they'll probably work all right. People are not going to like it. The only comment I can say, is that I'm looking forward to its completion to improve the efficiency and safety of the intersection for pedestrians and motorists.
That's a new position by you, right?
No, it's a continuing position. And so, if we just hang in there for another 9 months, we'll be in a better shape.
okay. Any EV charging, anything, Alan, on this?
Just very quickly, as I'm sure you all know, the federal infrastructure bill is getting very close to passage, and it includes a reduced but still very large component for encouraging electric vehicle stations. The other thing is I've been in some correspondence, and you'll just excuse me if I just don't remember if I reported this last month. I don't think so. Some correspondence with FP&L, and I asked them what their plans are, if any, to duplicate or replicate Tampa Electric's encouragement of electric vehicles through either rebates or infrastructure. And their answer was a less than satisfactory. Gee, we're really thinking about it. We think we have some ideas and we'll let you know. End of report.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to zoning, between Drew and Kathy, can the two of you tag team on some of the developments?
Probably more Drew than me on this. Drew?
Thank you, David. I just have two brief comments and a question. The first comment is that I am very humbled to be speaking to such an august body in August. The second comment is at this past Monday night commission meeting, city commission, and this is something that the board of directors might want to put on their radar screen. Petitioner asked the city commission why they vacated city land to the Lux on 10th in perpetuity, but only received a 30-year guarantee for affordable housing at that project. It's a good question, but it raises a larger question for the board of directors. And I see an opportunity to get out in front of a major concern here. The definition of affordable housing is a one size fits all, a single person who's a wage earner compared to an extended family with maybe one or zero breadwinners. I foresee some larger authority saying all future condominiums in downtown Sarasota must include affordable housing. What is the definition? I would recommend that the board of directors establish a partnership with the Sarasota Housing Authority, get up to speed on the Housing Choice Voucher Program, and be in front of this decision before it comes down. My question, and it's a brief question, is it, and if this is to Ken. Ken, if I might, I see a picture in the background. Is that you as a young man, or are you actually in the Lincoln bedroom?
No, it's not Lincoln.
Thank you, David.
Okay, and Kathy, anything to add, or Cheryl from?
Yeah, I think as far as the DSCA goes, I think we have to discuss and approve this motion. I think we have to get there. Let's see what we are on the support for civic dialogue. You know, are we, where are we on that?
We approved that last meeting.
Okay, so where do we sit when we get these organizations that meet, or are we sending a representative, or?
I have been attending most of those with Cheryl. I've been attending most of those, and intend to continue on with Patrick possibly, or others that would wish.
Okay, so I guess my bottom line is I don't know, Shirley, you want to speak to that with the sound?
For those who might not know what this is about, maybe you've had some previous discussions, so I don't want to, bore anybody. We've had a group that's been gathering. We've had 2 meetings. We've had about 40 plus people at these meetings from about 12 different condominiums, gathering to talk about issues that are important to having a livable downtown that addresses the needs of the growing population of residents downtown, along with the needs of the merchants and the entertainers and so on. And the key issues that we've identified, won't be any surprises here, the sound issues, not only the traffic sounds issues that are being very well addressed by Drew and Elka, but also the sound, the amplified sound from special events and from entertainment that's been going on downtown, and that there seems to be a movement by the commission to want to increase the frequency of such events that have staged entertainment and amplified music for extended hours and maybe even late hours. So that's a concern. So that's a big issue for this group. Vagrancy, of course, and the sit and lie ordinance is the second issue. zoning, particularly with respect to not only growth, but the approving of permits, and I think this comes under zoning. If not, the issue is the approval or permitting of more bars and pubs disguised as restaurants. That's becoming a concern to many of the residents downtown. And then the other one, the fourth issue, is the cleanliness of the downtown sidewalks and streets in particular. There's just, it's just filthy. So between the lack of care that the city has shown and maybe some merchants who haven't been taking care of the space in front of their storefronts, we have some pretty bad street cleanliness issues in the city. So the purpose of this group is to organize speakers and emailers around these four issues to appear before the city commission meetings in particular, and maybe some DID meetings as well, to express our concerns as citizens, as not members of any condo association or any other association, but the growing population of residents that want to be heard because of not only the tax dollars that we bring to the city, but because of our voting power. So, so those four groups are organizing and have progressed to sign up people who will rotate to speak at these commission meetings. So it isn't the same 2 or 3 people showing up all the time who then get labeled and dismissed by the commissioners when they express their concern. So that's what it's kind of informally being called concerned citizens.
Okay, thank you.
And I should add, I very much appreciate the fact that David has been attending these meetings and Patrick is always welcome. In fact, anyone's welcome to attend. So we appreciate your interest.
Okay, and then Bob, on the Bay Conservancy, may I suggest we kind of skip over that?
I think we should, since Ornstein covered it a little bit.
One important matter, and I know we're very tight on time, is the CCNA strategic plan matter. And Ted, I guess I know as much as you do at this point about this, that the CCNA was tasked by Marlin, I guess, to provide input on what they call a strategic plan. When I look at it, it looks like a 2-year priority plan. And each of the neighborhoods were asked to provide this survey document that we saw last month. And I talked to Lou a couple of days ago, and then I think I sent an email to everybody indicating that CCNA their executive board had identified, broadly speaking, loosely speaking, 3 priorities. One was a top priority was getting better community input to land use policy matters, something like that. The second one was the build out of Bobby Jones and its related park, and the third was affordable housing. So I know that when I sent this around, I got a number of responses to it, and I guess is there anybody that would like to speak to this? It's my view. I believe that this first priority they've identified of better community input to land use policies is one that I personally would sign on to as one of the top 3. And particularly when you listen between the lines to even what Nick said, about developers and the orientation, I believe, of the new city commission, I believe that it's going to be more important than ever to find a mechanism, try and negotiate a mechanism for reasonable community involvement as these things come down the pike. So with that, let me open it to discussion. I've talked to a couple of you individually about this.
David,
Yes.
I'd like to comment. The reason that CCNA gets this is because Tim Litchett several years ago decided that he wanted more community input into documents that the city staff was working on. And at that time, CCNA was seen as the major resident representative organization, but things have changed. And the Dsca has become probably much more important than CCNA because their interests are much more narrow and focused principally on residential issues and not commercial, and as well as residential and other kinds of activities. What we need to do, I don't want to keep getting involved and getting subordinated to CCNA. We need to go to the city staff, Steve Cover or whoever it is, and tell them, if you're going to send that kind of request to CCNA, send it also to Dsca, because we have a unique perspective on development issues in the city. And we should not be subsumed into whatever it is that CCNA has as a priority, because it may not match our priorities. So that's why you got comments from Clark and Alan and me and who else was it? Peter, that we need to become independent of and not subordinate to the CCNA.
They're here.
Yep. This is Patrick. Just to provide a bit of background to this. This item appearing on the CCNA's #1 priority came from Dsca. If you recall, 2 or 3 years ago, especially when Mel Sykes was leading the zoning code committee, we had several meetings with downtown people, Litchett, the whole 9 yards. And we got some changes made, but we recognized to get broader changes, we needed to get CCNA's support for our issues. So this represents a couple years effort of bringing CCNA along, and CCNA Executive Committee launched their public participation ad hoc committee, of which I serve on, so that our interests in downtown, especially regarding zoning and development and regulations and code compliance enforcement, were input to that. And so the wording that's being proposed to make that the #1 has some background that the committee is coming up with that includes code compliance and enforcement, which is a huge issue for all the other kinds of priorities that our residents are concerned about. So what I see this as is a success for Dsca of getting a broader focus on issues that do directly affect us, so that we have the mechanism so that we can more efficiently raise these. Part of what CCNA is pushing for is getting the city to recognize the need for a quote single point of contact. What we raised as the need for a neighborhood manager for the city. They used to have a general manager of neighborhood services, went away. There's no single point for neighborhood services other than a coordination role. So those are some of the things why that's behind that. And this is to get CCNA. Dsca has done our own strategic planning, and we can revise that. And as we're doing here, listening for other issues coming up and find ways of moving our issues forward in a complementary manner to what CCNA is doing. So I do
Patrick, you've just talked past my point. And that's the problem we've had for the last 2 years. It's fine to get support from CCNA and coordinate with CCNA, but we need to have our own independent positions. And I don't know what the hell our strategic plan has to do with responding to the city and commenting to the city on strategic issues.
Can we not do both, that be responsive and cooperative, for lack of a better word,
Sure
on the
we can.
CCNA effort, and parallel with that, take another look at our strategic plan and with not obviously now, but with a appropriate group, and move forward with tweaking that as we might in an implementation plan.
David, you're talking past my point. You're ignoring my point.
I'm not ignoring your point. I don't particularly see why being responsive to answering a survey question for CCNA, you're feeling that that's a matter of weakness for us to do that? I'm not understanding your point.
I thought my point was pretty damn clear, that we separate ourselves and be independent of and not subordinate to CCNA. Cooperation and coordination is fine, but we need to stand on our own 2 feet.
I would be the one that would say that of late, we have stood on our own 2 feet in personal meetings and advocacy, and had some successes in getting in budgets and getting recognized and getting phone calls returned. So I'm not sure I'm understanding that. So, but in the interest, what is it not what's on the table is the CCNA. Are we going to, in the short term, are we going to respond to this survey, or to lose their executive board's point of view? Or are we going to abstain, so to speak?
Given the speakers we've had at the last 2 meetings, it seems to me that I don't know what obstacle there would be to the city including us in any kind of request that they may send to CCNA, but send either the same or something similar to us directly, and let us respond to those things directly. And maybe that requires nothing more than a couple of phone calls to the people we've had at the last 2 meetings.
Yeah, and at the time the survey came out, but from CCNA, I reached out to, I can't remember if it was Pat Robinson or Kelly Strickland's office was coordinating this, and asked for the ability for Dsca to input to the strategic plan through the consultant. And it was in a very terse letter basically back saying, no, you've got to do it through CCNA. That's the only way. We're not gonna get a meeting with you and our consultant. Go pound sand.
Can I interject?
Oh, good.
Elke, I'm so sensitive to time here and wanting to hear from the other board members. I don't mean to be rude, but may we are there other board members that want to weigh in on this?
Well, I think in deference to Patrick, he's right in that over the course of 3 years, we had an idea. I don't know, it was 3 years ago or 4 years ago, what, Patrick, but I remember the long discussions we had with it. And so we took that idea and operationalized it. And we were looking for support of our operations. And we thought it would, as I remember, I thought we would present it to CCNA and see if they could support us on this initiative to take to the city. My reaction to CCNA's request was not negative. I didn't want to get into a competition. I'm number one, like a sporting event. But I thought that we, as the Dsca, ought to look at the strategic planning process the city's going through and identify the initiatives they're discussing from the Dsca point of view of downtown and the 4,000 members who live in condominiums and associations and apartments that have some kind of representation here, and bring back a position that they could support along with us as well as we supporting their position. I didn't think it had to be an either or kind of thing, but I wanted us to stand out in this discussion with a statement that was heard and believed by the staff that I understand didn't think Dsca had much to say about anything. So that was why I responded the way I did to the email.
Is there any way to respond to those, to that? Is there any way to respond to those questions, the questionnaire, in some sort of a bifurcated way to say that there are, not that there are two sets of answers, but there are two different, coming from two different places, and include our position in an overall thing that is clearly the urban answers and, for lack of a better word, the suburban, the neighborhood answers. That would take some cooperation, but it also would get our point across as a separate point of view.
Well, what if we to promote the discussion more quickly? I don't think we're going to solve it with 11 board members and 28 members online. Maybe we could toss this to our planning group, the executive committee, and maybe David, as your role of president, appoint one or two other people onto the executive committee, come back with the initiatives we want to support in relationship to the city's strategic plan, and present this to the board and the membership, and open the discussion around something that we all have in our hand rather than something we think somebody else said.
Yeah, we're not going to resolve it today, but the $64 question is: are we going to delay responding of our input to the CCNA thing, or are we going to move ahead with that and parallel with that, you know, do this thing that you're
I think we can respond to CCNA with the kinds of things we've already adopted, which would take in the position that Patrick just outlined. I think that's on record. I don't see any reason not to be able to say, CCNA, please support this in your statement.
So, Peter, are you saying that you would support the DSC board simply responding that we have no objections, or we support those three priorities that CCNA is putting forward?
I don't know if we will three priorities, but I know we can.
Or at least the first priority, yeah. And then we will be drafting our own priorities and
looking for your support of our priorities.
So respond just to their first priority, and then we are considering
other priorities.
Okay, I think that is a
because of our unique setting.
Yeah, I think that's a very good suggestion, because the first one is almost a no-brainer. I hate to say it, particularly because of the time,
right?
Where the times we're in, and vulnerability to certain things being usurped, actually. So, yeah, how can you help with the motion?
I'll make a motion that we support the CCNA's first priority, something on the order of increased opportunity for neighborhood participation in the land development process. And I'll write that separately. It's in the email I sent out. With DSCA also developing its own list of priorities for input on the city's strategic plan.
I can second that.
Just a question on that. By saying we support the neighborhood, is it implicit in that the city is a neighborhood, or would it be necessary to say something to the effect that we support it, and we support it particularly in I'm not quite sure how to phrase it. I don't know that we want to subsume this into the neighborhood association entirely without at least saying that Dsca has a point of view because the city is different.
Well, I mean, Alan, the city administration recognizes DSCA as a registered neighborhood association.
Well, I understand that, but they also apparently, according to David, want nothing to do with us.
No, he was
I mean,
talking.
they come to our meetings, but then when we say we want to submit something to them, we want questions to be addressed to us as well as to the neighborhood association, they say no way. So I'm very unclear about this
The
whole
reason
relationship.
why CCNA's adoption of that number one for increased opportunity for neighborhood participation is exactly what you're asking for.
I get it. I guess to me, there's just a disconnect somewhere, but okay.
Could we substitute the word citizen input for neighborhood input? Would that help?
We did.
That's what I did. Yes.
Okay, so do you have that one more time, Patrick?
Yes, well, it was an email I sent out. It was for increased opportunity for neighborhood participation in the land development process. And that, as Lou said, that's being worked on. But if we state that as the goal that we support, then we can go forward with that.
Okay.
What about using citizen instead of neighborhood?
Well, here's just another
Like you said, increased opportunity for neighborhood participation. In the
That's
land development
neighborhood isn't citizen.
What about registered neighborhood associations? I mean, would you like that or?
That gets, the committee that was discussing that went back and forth for an hour and a half.
Over residents.
That shortened phrase, it was about twice as long, and the idea was to get it down, and there'll be some secondary text elaborating on that.
Okay.
But I think that encapsulates what I think our downtown neighborhood wants to have.
Right. Okay, well, let's move along, and we have that motion on the floor. Any further discussion? A second?
Peter
You second it? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And Ken is a yes or no? Okay, so Alan, yes.
I'm a yes, but I think we have a lot more to discuss, not today, but going forward.
All right. Then Rosemary District Association update. I've got nothing other than the parks moving ahead. And now to our Platinum Associate highlights and unions.
I did just want to ask Platinum members, again, I sent out an email, but just a reminder, if you guys do want a speaking opportunity before the end of the meeting, just make sure you send me something new that's going on with your industry before the next meeting. Just remember that. Go ahead.
And
Sorry.
what's the deadline on that?
I prefer a week before the next meeting, so every meeting is the first Wednesday of the month. So if you guys have something new in your industry that you want to share with the group, I usually let you guys speak around the time that I speak, which is fairly early in the meeting. So just a reminder on that. Sorry, Kristen.
That's okay. So I'm gonna let everybody else go first since I have to speak for so many people. And I see James Toll with Tannenbaum Scroll. Would you like to go first?
Sure. Thank you, Kristen. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
All right. So I'm Jim Toll from Tannenbaum Scroll, LeBoul, and Kleinberg. We are not general representation attorneys. We are construction attorneys. And I just have one announcement. Tomorrow at 11 a.m., we are going to have a webinar via Zoom. And certainly over the next couple of years, we will learn more and more about the Surfside disaster. But the title of this is, lessons learned from Surfside, what we have learned so far. And Michelle Colburn from our office, she is going to, in the chat, she will put her email address in there. And if you want to register for that webinar, just reach out to her via email and she'll get you registered.
Great,
Thank you,
Jim. And keep in mind to post those educational events on the website. We can do that now. So you can upload your flyer right on the DSCA website. I see, is Patricia still there with Stabler?
Hi.
Hi.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi.
You must be exhausted after that meeting. I have a couple of things to report. Patricia Stabler, Stabler Appraisal and Consulting. We do insurance appraisals and reserve studies. And I was invited to be on the National Task Force of Community Association Institute, which was formed in response to the Surfside disaster. And this task force consists of attorneys, engineers, and reserve specialists like me. And we will be working on a language, suggestive language for lawmakers to implement into law to prevent that things like this will happen again. The consensus of the group so far is that state mandates are not sufficient. It should not be allowed for condominium associations to permanently vote down reserves, specifically reserves of the building envelope. And one of my suggestions was to prepare bifurcated reserve components where the building envelope structural issues are all contained in a component funding scenario, and they cannot be voted away. They have to be funded, fully funded. And the remainder of all the components could be contained in a pooled scenario to make it easier on the association. So these are just a couple of ideas which are going around. We will work every week on this for the foreseeable future. And I can keep you posted on what will happen and what kind of language will go as suggestions to our lawmakers. That's all I have to report. Thank you.
Thank you. Did I see Lori from Angus and Terry earlier? Okay, she might have logged off. Okay, rounding off, but do we have any other platinum members here? Hey.
Yes, we, Brown & Brown Insurance, my name is Melissa, this is Sam. We work on Mike Andrews' team, some of you might know him, he does a lot of condos downtown. But let me start off by saying, don't shoot the messenger. We all know insurance, it goes in cycles, and we are in a hard market, which is why you're seeing increasing rates and carriers being a little bit more strict on their guidelines. But with that being said, it's really important that you all have an agent that has knowledge, the experience, expertise, and has really strong relationships with the carriers to negotiate on your behalf and can get favors pulled for you, because it's getting pretty crazy out there. So with that being said, you know, we are downtown. If you have any questions, we have a really good pulse in the marketplace. Let us know. We're happy to help.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm Kristen with Core Marketing. I represent the remaining platinum members who were not able to be here today. Just a new thing with Right Way Emergency Services. I don't know if you've noticed, we've had a lot of rain lately. So, you know, if you're noticing any water intrusion, that can be a construction defect. You can ask our Jim Toll here, but sometimes that can be a construction defect. So you want to get that taken care of immediately and then find out the source of that water intrusion, and Right Way can clean you up in that regard. And then professional plumbing and design, to Melissa's point about insurance, you know, get your stacks in line. Any kind of maintenance projects, capital projects, like you're relining your stacks, replacing your stacks, any kind of that, things like that can paint a really good picture for your insurance agent. And so right now you're going to pay the hikes, right? And they're just going to get higher since Surfside. So anything you can do to kind of, you know, paint a good picture when it's claim time. And then Forge Engineering, what's new in the engineering world is, I don't know if you've read in the paper since Surfside, they're talking a lot about our coastal high-rise condominiums sinking. And so there's all these reports going on that are concerning a lot of high-rise residents. So the Forge Engineering is one of the few engineering companies that offer geotechnical studies, but I love what they said at this last event I was at with them. Don't, you know, buy into the hype of, oh, we got to get this study, we got to get this study. They can do it for you, but there are other things they can do to see if you even need that study. So just make sure you don't fall into that trap. And then CBIZ Insurance, echoing what Melissa said, it's all about service right now. One thing that CBIS is doing is offering monthly sessions in their office. They're small groups, and they offer some educational information updates on the insurance market. And last month, they held a session on the active shooter event that happened right across the bridge here. So just like, you know, kind of renewing the awareness of those policies that you need to have at your association. Do we have any gold members? Yes, all right.
Yeah, I'm Chad. I'm a CRS commercial roofing specialist, not to tie into increasing premiums here, but your roofing's being replaced, your roofing system's being replaced do lower your premiums as well. So they're up to code. And if there's any code aspects we can look at. I think, are we in the, we're kind of new, right? We're 3 months old.
You're in here. I haven't met you yet, so welcome.
I've only been Zoom otherwise, but are we in like some kind of book that tells us you guys our information, like our phone number or email or anything like that?
So you're on the website, your logo will appear under the gold member section.
Yeah.
And no pun intended, gold member, that's funny. But they can click on I think they can click on your logo and it takes them to your website.
Okay, perfect.
How does one become a gold or a platinum member? So probably a platinum member.
Money, basically.
Perfect, because I have. How does one go about it?
You can see me afterward, probably.
Okay.
Rebel Social.
Good to see you.
Thank you, guys.
Anything else? Any other comments? Otherwise, we've run over and apologize for that. So with that, we're adjourned and we have some.
We want to make a statement about next month's meeting, may not be here.
Oh,
right.
Yes. So we will not be having the meeting here next month at the park. So if we can think of alternative plans going forward. And maybe,
Okay. All right. Broadway.
Okay.
Okay.
And then going forward, I mean, be thinking about where we want the month after that.
Sure.
Rotate it.
Okay.
Good.
Nothing else. We are adjourned and we have wine and the cheese plate and some beers over there. So hopefully everybody can stick around. Thank you.
Roger's right.
Oh, the cheese plate?